Thomas tried to hide his face, but Mrs. Goodwin was already moving from behind her desk. She took his cold hands in her warm ones and led him to a quiet corner with 2 soft chairs. "Tell me what's happened," she said gently. The kind words broke the dam. Thomas told her everything. The factory closing with only 2 weeks' notice, the sudden illness that put him in hospital for weeks, the bills that ate all his savings, and now the eviction notice giving him just 3 days to leave his home. "I've applied for every job in town," Thomas said, his voice low and tired. "Nobody wants to hire a middle-aged factory worker. I don't know what to do anymore." Mrs. Goodwin listened quietly. When he finished, she poured him a cup of tea from her thermos. "You know, you're not the first person to face hard times in this village," she said. "During the last big storm, half the houses near the river flooded, my own included. We all needed help then." Thomas stared into his teacup. "This is different. I failed." "Nonsense," Mrs. Goodwin said firmly. "The factory closing wasn't your fault. Getting sick wasn't your fault. Sometimes life knocks us down, and we need a hand getting back up." She reached for her phone and made a quick call. Thomas heard her speaking to someone named Robert about emergency housing. "Robert Taylor runs the Community Help Center," she explained after hanging up. "He has a small flat above the center that's used for people in need. It's yours for a month while you sort things out." Thomas started to shake his head. "I can't take charity." "It's not charity," Mrs. Goodwin cut. "Thomas, it's community. And you can help out at the center to earn your keep. They need someone who knows woodworking. The children's program has stopped since old Mr. Williams moved away." For the first time in months, Thomas felt a tiny spark of hope. He remembered the joy of teaching children to make simple wooden toys and boxes. His hands, rough from years of factory work, were still skilled with wood and tools. The next morning, Thomas met Robert at the community center. The flat was small, just 1 room with a tiny kitchen and bathroom, but it was clean and warm. Robert showed him the workshop space where children's classes were held. "We can't pay much," Robert explained, "but you'll have this place and meals. The classes run 3 days a week." Thomas ran his hand over a workbench. Tools hung neatly on the wall. The smell of wood and varnish brought back memories of happier times. "I could fix these shelves," Thomas said, noticing the sagging bookcase against one wall. "And this workbench needs new supports." Robert smiled. "Sounds like you're the right man for the job." That afternoon, Thomas moved his few remaining belongings into the flat. As he placed his father's watch on the small bedside table, he felt something he hadn't felt in months, a sense of purpose. The next day, Thomas started work. He repaired the workbench and shelves, then organized the tools and wood supplies. When children arrived for the afternoon class, Thomas felt nervous but remembered Mrs. Goodwin's words about community. 8-year-old Emma was the first to arrive with her mother. "Are you our new teacher?" she asked, eyes wide and curious. Thomas nodded, showing her how to sand a small piece of wood. Soon the room filled with children's voices and the sounds of gentle work. For the first time since losing his job, Thomas forgot his troubles for a few hours. That evening, sitting in his small flat, Thomas looked at his father's watch. His father had always said that time moves forward, never back. Maybe it was time for Thomas to move forward too. Outside the window, lights glowed warm in village homes. Thomas wasn't part of those homes yet, but he wasn't alone anymore. Sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness could change everything. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but today Thomas had found a place to start again. Mrs. Goodwin led Thomas to a quiet corner of the library and listened as he finally shared his troubles. She didn't interrupt or offer empty platitudes. She simply listened. "You know," she said when he finished, "my late husband William lost everything in his 40s too. It nearly destroyed him, but he found his way back. Sometimes we need to lose our path before finding a better one." Thomas doubted there was any path forward for him. "I've applied everywhere, Mrs. Goodwin. Nobody wants to hire a middle-aged factory worker with outdated skills." "Perhaps not," she agreed. "But they might hire a skilled woodworker. The community center lost their crafts teacher last month. The pay isn't much, but it includes the caretaker's cottage." Thomas shook his head. "I couldn't possibly—" "Just talk to Mary Taylor. At the center," Mrs. Goodwin insisted. "What do you have to lose?" The next morning, Thomas found himself outside the community centre, nervously straightening his only decent shirt. Inside, Mary greeted him warmly, remembering his volunteer work. "We can't offer much," she explained, "but the cottage needs someone, living there to keep an eye on things." Thomas looked around the community centre. Children's drawings hung on the walls, tools sat unused on shelves. The crafts room needed cleaning and care. "I don't know if I'm the right person," Thomas said quietly. Mary smiled kindly. "Mrs. Goodwin thinks you are. She called me last night and told me about your woodworking skills." Mary showed Thomas the small cottage behind the community centre. It had just 2 rooms, a living area with a kitchenette and a small bedroom. The walls needed paint and the floor creaked, but it was clean and had a small garden out back. "The last caretaker left 3 weeks ago," Mary explained. "We need someone to look after the building, teach 3 woodworking classes a week, and help with repairs. In return, you get the cottage and a small weekly payment." Thomas ran his hand along the simple wooden table in the kitchen. It was well made but needed sanding and oiling, just like him, worn down but still useful. "I can start with fixing this table," he said. Mary's face brightened. "Does that mean you'll take the job?" Thomas took a deep breath. "Yes, I have nowhere else to go, and my hands still remember how to work with wood." That afternoon, Thomas moved his few belongings into the cottage. His father's watch went on the bedside table, a reminder of better days and the hope for more to come. The next day, Thomas began cleaning the crafts room. He found good tools hidden under dust and broken pieces. He sorted wood scraps, saving the best pieces. By evening, the room looked clean and welcoming. On Wednesday, Thomas taught his first class. 5 children came, looking at him with curious eyes. "Today we will make simple birdhouses," Thomas explained, showing them a model he had made the night before. 10-year-old Oliver raised his hand. "I've never made anything before. I'll probably mess it up." Thomas smiled, remembering his own first woodworking project. "Everyone makes mistakes, that's how we learn. Let me show you how to measure and mark the wood." As the children worked, Thomas moved from table to table, helping and encouraging. When little Emma struggled with the saw, he guided her hands. "Slowly now. Let the saw do the work," he said. By the end of class, 5 birdhouses stood on the table. None were perfect, but all were made with care and pride. "Next week we'll paint them," Thomas promised. That evening, Mary brought Thomas a home-cooked meal. "The children loved the class," she said. Oliver's mother said he talked about nothing else all evening. Thomas felt a small glow of pride. "They did well. With practice, they'll do even better." "Just like you," Mary said. "One day at a time." The next morning, Thomas woke early. For the first time in months, he had purpose. He made a simple breakfast and then walked through the garden behind his cottage. Weeds had taken over, but he could see the bones of what was once a beautiful space. "I could grow vegetables here," he thought. "Maybe some flowers by the door." As Thomas pulled the first weeds, his neighbor from the house next door called over the fence. "About time someone took care of that garden," the old man said. "I'm George. Been watching that garden go to waste for months," Thomas introduced himself. George nodded. "Used to be a factory man myself before retirement. Hard times when the old plant closed." "Very hard," Thomas agreed. George leaned on the fence. "Got some tomato seedlings if you want them. Too many for my garden." That small offer of friendship meant more to Thomas than George could know. "I'd like that," he said. "And maybe I could fix that gate of yours in return." Thomas Parker stared at the eviction notice with trembling hands. At 45, he never imagined he'd be homeless. 6 months ago, he had a good job at the local factory, a modest flat in the village of Millfield, and a sense of belonging. Now, after the factory closed and illness drained his savings, he had nothing. 3 days, he whispered to himself, looking around the nearly empty flat. Most of his belongings were already sold to pay bills. Only his father's old watch remained, the last connection to his family. That evening, Thomas walked through the village square, too ashamed to meet anyone's eyes. He passed the community center where he once volunteered, teaching woodworking to local children. Those days felt like another lifetime. As rain began to fall, Thomas ducked into the village library. Mrs. Goodwin, the elderly librarian, noticed him immediately. Thomas, I haven't seen you in ages. Are you all right, dear? You look terrible. The first time in months, someone looked at him with kindness rather than judgment. Something inside Thomas broke, and tears welled in his eyes. Later that week, Thomas received his first payment from the community center. It wasn't much, but it was honest money for honest work. He bought bread, eggs, and tea. Simple things that now felt like luxuries. On Sunday, Mrs. Goodwin visited. Thomas served tea in the mismatched cups he'd found in the cottage cupboard. "How does it feel?" she asked. "To have a home again?" Thomas looked around the small cottage. In just 1 week, it had begun to feel like his. A vase of wildflowers stood on the table he had repaired. Plans for next week's class lay nearby. "It feels like a second chance," he said. "I'm not sure I deserve it." Mrs. Goodwin's eyes were kind but firm. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Thomas, the question is what you'll do with yours." Thomas nodded slowly. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in months, he could see a path forward, one step at a time. The caretaker's cottage was tiny, just 1 bedroom, a kitchenette and a living area, but to Thomas it felt like a palace. For the first time in months, he slept without fear of tomorrow. Teaching woodworking classes 3 days a week barely covered his basic needs, but Thomas found unexpected joy in sharing his craft. The children's enthusiasm reminded him of his own passion for creating beautiful things from simple wood. One evening, 8-year-old Emily proudly showed Thomas the small jewelry box she'd made. "My mum says it's the prettiest thing she's ever seen," she beamed. Thomas helped her sand the rough edges. "You have a natural talent, Emily." "My dad used to make things," she said quietly, "before he died. Mum doesn't have anything nice anymore." Later, Thomas met Emily's mother, Jane Wilson, a tired-looking woman who worked 2 jobs to support her daughter. Something about her quiet dignity touched Thomas deeply. "Emily talks about your class constantly," Jane said. "It's the first time she's been excited about anything since we lost her father." Thomas found himself creating a beautiful wooden lamp for Jane's birthday. When Emily presented it to her mother, Jane's eyes filled with tears. Thomas spent 3 nights working on the lamp. He chose the best pieces of maple from the wood pile behind the community center. The wood was smooth and light in color. It would catch the light beautifully. "What are you making, Mr. Parker?" Emily asked one day after class. Thomas covered his work with a cloth. "Just a small project, nothing special." But it was special. Thomas carved small leaf designs around the base. He shaped the wood until it curved like a tree growing toward the light. Each night his hands moved with care and purpose. As he worked, Thomas thought about Jane Wilson. She reminded him of his own mother, who had raised him alone after his father died. Strong women who never complained, who just did what needed to be done. The day before Jane's birthday, Thomas finished the lamp. He polished it until the wood glowed golden in the light. He found a simple cream-colored shade in the village shop. The shop owner, Mrs. Davis, smiled when he explained what it was for. "No charge," she said. "Jane Wilson is a good woman. She cleans my shop every Monday, never misses a day." Thomas protested, but Mrs. Davis was firm. "We take care of our own, in this village." On Jane's birthday, Thomas wrapped the lamp in brown paper. He gave it to Emily after class. "It's for your mum," he explained, "but you must say you made it." Emily's eyes grew wide. "But I didn't make it." "You did," Thomas smiled. "We'll say we made it together. Your mum will be proud of you." Emily touched the package with gentle fingers. She never gets presents, only gives them. That evening, Thomas couldn't focus on his dinner. He kept thinking about Jane and Emily. Would Jane like the lamp? Would it bring some beauty into their simple home? The next morning, Thomas was sweeping the community center steps when Emily came running up. Her face was bright with excitement. "Mr. Parker, Mr. Parker, Mum loved the lamp. She cried and hugged me so tight." Emily's words tumbled out. She put it right by her bed and said it's the most beautiful thing she's ever owned. Thomas felt his chest grow warm with happiness. It had been a long time since he'd made someone else happy. "I told her the truth," Emily added, "that you made it, not me." Thomas shook his head. "You shouldn't have. She wants to thank you herself. She's coming to pick me up after class today." All day, Thomas felt nervous. He cleaned the classroom. Twice. He even borrowed a clean shirt from George next door. He couldn't understand why his heart beat faster when he thought of Jane Wilson. After class, as the other children left, Jane arrived. She looked different today. Her hair was loose around her shoulders and she wore a simple blue dress instead of her work clothes. "Mr. Parker," she said, standing in the doorway. "Emily told me about the lamp." Thomas felt his face grow warm. "It was nothing, just some scrap wood." Jane shook her head. "It wasn't nothing. It was the kindest gift anyone has given us in a long time." She stepped into the room, Emily by her side. "Why did you do it?" Thomas didn't know how to answer, because he understood loneliness, because Emily's words about her father had touched him, because something about Jane's quiet strength made him want to bring light into her life. "Everyone deserves beautiful things," he said simply. "And Emily said you didn't have anything nice anymore." Jane's eyes filled with tears again, but she smiled through them. "Would you like to come for dinner tomorrow? It won't be fancy, but I make a good stew." Before Thomas could answer, Emily spoke up. "Please say yes, Mr. Parker. Mum's stew is the best in the whole village." Thomas looked at Jane's hopeful face. For so long, he had been alone with his troubles. The thought of sharing a meal with this small family filled him with unexpected joy. "I'd like that very much," he said. The next evening, Thomas walked to the small house where Jane and Emily lived. It was on the edge of the village, a simple place with a small garden. Thomas had picked wildflowers on his way. They weren't much, but they were bright and cheerful. Jane opened the door, the smell of stew and fresh bread filling the air. "Welcome," she said. Emily ran to him. "Mr. Parker, come see where we put the lamp." The lamp stood on a small table, its light warm and golden. It made the simple room look like home. As they ate dinner, Thomas learned that Jane's husband had died 2 years ago. She worked cleaning houses during the day and at the village pub 3 nights a week. "It's not the life I planned," she said, "but we manage." Thomas understood. Life rarely went as planned, but sometimes, when you least expected it, life could surprise you with small moments of joy. After dinner, Thomas helped wash the dishes. Their hands touched in the soapy water, and neither pulled away. "Will you come again?" Jane asked as he was leaving. Thomas looked at her hopeful face, at Emily, watching them from the doorway at the warm light of his lamp glowing in the window. "Yes," he said, "I'd like that very much." Walking home in the moonlight, Thomas felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time, hope for tomorrow. In the quiet town of Millbrook, a peculiar story unfolded around a young girl named Emma. She was unlike other children her age, with an extraordinary gift that set her apart from everyone else. Emma could hear whispers from objects around her, old books, forgotten toys, and even the worn-out furniture in her grandmother's attic. One crisp autumn morning, while exploring the dusty corners of her grandmother's house, Emma discovered an ancient wooden box hidden behind a stack of weathered photo albums. The box seemed to pulse with a strange energy, and its whispers were louder and more intense than any she had heard before. As her small fingers traced the intricate carvings on the box's surface, images began to flood her mind. She saw glimpses of a distant past, a story of a brave traveler, a lost treasure, and a mysterious promise. The box wanted to tell her something important, something that had been waiting to be discovered for generations. Her grandmother, Margaret, had always been protective of the old house and its secrets. She would often give Emma mysterious looks, as if she knew something about the girl's unique ability, but chose not to speak about it. The old woman had raised Emma since she was a baby, after her parents disappeared under strange circumstances that no one in the town wanted to discuss. The whispers from the box grew more urgent. They spoke of a hidden map, a secret location deep in the nearby forest, and a treasure that could change everything. Emma knew she had to investigate, but she also understood that she couldn't tell anyone about what she heard, not even her grandmother. Late one night, while the house was silent and everyone was asleep, Emma carefully wrapped the wooden box in her favorite blue blanket and slipped it into her backpack. She had made a decision to follow the whispers and uncover the truth that had been waiting for so long. The forest was dark and mysterious, with tall trees that seemed to watch her every move. Emma moved carefully, guided by the soft whispers, coming from the box. Each step brought her closer to something extraordinary, something that had been waiting to be discovered for decades. Suddenly, the whispers became clearer. They revealed a story of a long-lost explorer who had hidden something precious in these woods many years ago. The box was more than just an object. It was a key to unlocking a mystery that had been buried for generations. As dawn broke, Emma found herself standing in a small clearing. The whispers from the box became intense, pointing her toward a large, ancient oak tree. Something was buried near its roots, something that had been waiting to be found for years. With trembling hands, she began to dig. The ground was soft, and her small fingers worked quickly. Minutes felt like hours as she uncovered a small metal container, its surface covered in strange symbols and markings. The mystery was just beginning, and Emma knew her life would never be the same. The whispers had led her to something incredible, something that connected her to a history she was only starting to understand. Little did Emma know that her discovery would set in motion a series of events that would change not just her life, but the lives of many others in Millbrook. The wooden box, the forest, and the hidden treasure were just the beginning of an adventure that would reveal secrets long forgotten. As the morning sun rose higher, casting golden light through the trees, Emma clutched the metal container close to her heart. She knew she had found something extraordinary, something that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her family, her town, and herself. The whispers continued, promising more mysteries to come, more stories waiting to be uncovered. And Emma was ready to listen, to explore and to unravel the secrets that had been waiting for her all along. Her journey was just beginning, and the wooden box with its magical whispers was her guide into a world of wonder, mystery, and unexpected adventure. Back in Millbrook, Emma's absence had not gone unnoticed. Her grandmother, Margaret, was becoming increasingly worried. She knew her granddaughter was different, with abilities that most people would find hard to understand. The old woman had been protecting Emma's secret for years, hoping to keep her safe from those who might not comprehend her special gift. Emma returned home, clutching the metal container from the forest. She could sense her grandmother's mixture of worry and curiosity. Margaret's eyes were sharp, catching every small detail about her granddaughter's appearance and behavior. Something had changed in Emma, and Margaret could feel it. The metal container seemed to hum with a quiet energy. Emma carefully placed it on the kitchen table, her hands shaking slightly. She looked at her grandmother, knowing that she would need help to understand the mystery she had uncovered. Margaret approached slowly, her weathered hands reaching out to touch the container. Suddenly, the container began to glow with a soft, gentle light. Strange symbols danced across its surface, revealing a map that seemed to show a hidden path through the town and beyond. Emma and her grandmother watched in amazement as the map unfolded its secrets. The map told a story of a group of travelers who had passed through Millbrook many years ago. They had hidden something precious, something that could change the way people understood the world. The map showed different locations: an old church, an abandoned mill, and a series of underground tunnels that ran beneath the town. Emma's ability to hear whispers from objects became more intense. The map was speaking to her, revealing fragments of a story that had been waiting to be told for generations. She could hear the voices of those who had created the map, their hopes, their fears, and their incredible secret. Margaret knew more than she was letting on. Her eyes held a mixture of fear and excitement. She had been waiting for this moment, preparing for the day when Emma would discover her true purpose. The old woman had protected a family secret for decades, and now it was time for the truth to come out. As night fell, Emma and her grandmother began to piece together the clues. The map showed a complex network of locations, each holding a small piece of a larger puzzle. They realized that the metal container was just the first step in a much bigger adventure. The town of Millbrook suddenly seemed different. Places that had once looked ordinary now held hidden meanings. The old church, which Emma had passed hundreds of times, now looked like a key to something extraordinary. The abandoned mill at the edge of town seemed to hold secrets of its own. Emma discovered that her parents' disappearance was somehow connected to this mystery. The whispers from the map suggested that they had been part of something much larger than anyone in the town had ever known. Their disappearance was not an accident, but part of a complex plan. As they worked through the night, Margaret shared stories about Emma's family that had been kept secret for years. She told her granddaughter about special abilities that had been passed down through generations, about people who could hear the voices of objects and understand hidden truths. The metal container contained more than just a map. It held a message, a warning about something that was coming. Emma realized that her unique ability was not just a strange talent, but a gift that could help protect the town and its people. Outside, the town of Millbrook slept peacefully, unaware of the incredible discovery happening in Margaret's kitchen. The old house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next chapter of the story to unfold. Emma knew that her life would never be the same. The whispers from the objects around her were becoming clearer, more urgent. They were preparing her for something important, something that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself and her family. As dawn approached, Emma and her grandmother continued to study the map and the mysterious container. They knew that their adventure was just beginning and that the secrets of Millbrook were about to be revealed. The metal container continued to glow softly, its symbols dancing in the early morning light. It was a promise of something extraordinary, a hint of the incredible journey that lay ahead for Emma and her grandmother. Little did the town know that a young girl with an extraordinary gift was about to uncover secrets that had been hidden for generations. Millbrook was about to change forever, and Emma was at the center of it all. The whispers continued, telling their story, waiting to be heard and understood. And Emma was ready to listen, to explore, and to uncover the truth that had been waiting for her all along.